So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And I want to just go over sort of the architecture of this. We have some updates that we'll provide you with. And if you have questions, please use the Q&A function to pose your questions, whether they're on topics we bring up or something else you'd like to ask about related to the schools and the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm Bill Lupini, Superintendent of Schools. Have with me David Hobbs, our Assistant Superintendent, Caroline Arakelian, Executive Director of Student Services, Matt Ferreira, our Business Administrator, and Rhonda Evans, my Administrative Assistant, who makes all this happen. So a couple things to start, I guess. Number one, I just want to thank Raymond Pillsbury, who was with us last week, and all of you for the comments and questions that we got and continued to get after the session was over for Raymond. As Raymond always does when he's with us presenting in any way, he obviously struck a chord, and we'll try to figure out a way to incorporate Raymond in a number of things for the community down the road. I have some news on the next few of these sessions. So next week, we will be joined by all of our elementary principals, our K-8 principals, and our K-4 and middle school principals in Seabrook, along with Michelle Witt, who will be taking over as the principal of the Barnard School on July the 1st, and who has been doing a lot of work with Walter Houston leading up to that. So all of them will be here to give an update on their schools and answer questions. And the following week, which I believe is May 9th, I believe next week is May 2nd. On May 9th, we'll be joined again by Bill McGowan. There's a lot of great work going on at the high school around graduation and other senior events. I'll update you a little bit on some of that this morning, but Bill will be with us in 2 weeks again to talk really more at that point about the end of the year, about the end of the school year and what all that means. So, so that's great that they'll all be able to join us. So I have a couple of updates, and then I'll turn this over to, in order, Dr. Hobbs, Dr. Arakelian, and Mr. Ferreira to give their updates as well. So we are waiting for a document from the Department of Education that they are calling the end of year planning guide. We thought we would have it by the end of the day yesterday. We don't. But this is supposed to give us some guidance around end of the year events. And we really need and want to get that document because we're doing a lot of planning now, but quite frankly, it's a lot of planning in the dark, in that we don't know where the governor will be on allowing certain group size, those kinds of things by then. And so we're making a lot of plans, but that document, which we now hope we'll have by Monday, it will be very valuable to us in making some of those plans. So we are doing a lot of work around graduation and 8th grade events right now. I just want to make a huge shout out to the principals, their assistant principals, and anyone else in the case of the high school, our senior class advisors and senior class administrators, who are just doing amazing work in sort of taking the invitation that we gave them, which was to think outside of the box and that no idea was crazy around these end of the year events. So Bill McGowan and I sent a letter yesterday to seniors. We've made a pledge that we'll send a letter every week to seniors to let them know what's going on. I mean, obviously Bill and I've sat in a few of those meetings with the senior class officers, but we want to make sure that seniors get their questions answered. At the elementary school, and I'm going to come back to graduation in a second and senior events. At the elementary schools, people are just doing some amazing work in thinking outside of the box. I don't want to give some of them away because some of them are surprises, but I will say that things like trips that 8th graders were going to go on, people are looking for ways to simulate those experiences for kids. And they have some really interesting and great ideas that they're talking about implementing over the course of the rest of the year. Things like move-up events. People are thinking creatively about using technology, this platform and others, to make sure that, for example, 8th graders coming to the high school have an opportunity to spend time with people at the high school who will greet them next year. 4th graders at Seabrook Elementary would have an opportunity to talk with, and their parents to talk with teachers in 5th grade and the administration. People are saying, so these are the things we have planned on a normal year. How do we replicate them in this environment? How do we create a situation that is as normal as we can create it for kids? In the case of seniors, I had a nice conversation with Bill McGowan yesterday about scholarship night and a way they're talking about taking that event online. Much like the NFL draft, for some of you who are watching that now, it's sort of an online kind of event to award scholarships. They're talking about that. We've talked about a number of different graduation ideas, ways for kids to pick up their caps and gowns that could involve staff members who would be appropriately distanced. I mean, there's a whole lot of these kinds of ideas being generated. And we really want to honor the desires of the senior class that they want an in-person event. And so we had a lot of discussion this past week, and you may have seen it, about what happened at the Air Force Academy with an event that they had for graduation. We're paying special attention to those kinds of events to see if there's some way that we might be able to replicate them for our students. But again, some of that will depend on this end of the year planning guide that we're anticipating is going to come from the Department of Education soon. So lots of great thinking, and that's why we're going to have the elementary principals on, and then the high school principal again on to work with us and tell you about their plans. Summer programs, I'm going to let Dr. Arakelian talk a lot about that, but just know that we are looking at summer programs right now, and we're planning as if they're going to be in a remote setting. I mean, obviously the direction coming out of the department is that we should be planning for both. They're going to be very hard, very difficult to do. We're taking a look at many of those summer programs as to whether we would be able to do them in a remote environment and what that would actually look like. So I'll leave that to Dr. Arakelian to update you. Last week we had a question right at the beginning of the session, which we, I'll probably say avoided because it was really a week for Raymond. But I want to let all of you know that we are meeting, Mr. Ferreira and I, over the course of the next week. We'll be meeting with leaders from each of our towns to talk about the financial picture in each of those towns. And you can read a lot about people's projections as to what this means to state and local budgets, what we're living through right now. But we're going to start those meetings because we want to do two things, right? We want to make sure that we understand the issues faced by the towns and where we can help out. But we also want to make it really clear that our kids and teachers and schools are going to have needs coming out of this environment, and that we need to make sure that we can honor those needs and not create problems that are worse down the road for kids and families by making reductions where we really can't make reductions. So, you know, I think there's a need for sort of that balanced approach. I think our boards, I don't want to speak for the 23 people necessarily that I work with, but I think our boards understand that. I think they agree with that. And so that's where we are. Over the next couple weeks, you're going to hear me in particular talk a lot about the criteria for reopening schools. So there is a lot being written now about what it will take for schools to reopen, what schools will look like when they reopen. And we've started to stick our toe in the water of those conversations. We will ramp those conversations up much more over the coming weeks. And so I'll be able to update you much more on those things as to what reopening schools looks like. I've said to you on this platform before that we hear things like kids coming back with masks, kids coming back with only when there's testing available, kids social distancing. What does that mean to a school of 1,000 kids like Winnicott High School? some schools in other parts of the country and other parts of the world that are going to split sessions, and all kinds of those things that we are going to begin to put together some groups to tackle over the coming weeks. So much more to come on that. And the last thing I want to say is that great work around the issues that we know were in front of us when we left continues. Dr. Hobbs and this group had a conversation yesterday. Many of you know about a math program review that we've had underway, studying what do we do to make sure that when kids come to our high school, out of whatever of our K-8 schools they go to, they have the same opportunities to access the curriculum at Winnacunnet High School, and that curriculum has opportunities for kids to bridge to other courses at the high school. That is very important to us and remains very important to us despite what we're faced right now. And so what's really great news is that Dr. Hobbs, curriculum coordinators, teachers who are involved have been able to continue that work. Now, maybe not to the point where we would be if we were all face-to-face and having those opportunities, but those kinds of things are continuing because they're important, and we want to make sure that we can put many of them in place when we come back. So I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Hobbs in a minute, but I want to thank all of you for joining us. I want to thank our amazing teachers and support staff. A big shout out, I think this week is deserved by our people in food services and our EAs who are assisting with that meals program. We continue to see increases in families accessing our meals program. And I just applaud those people who are coming in to make sure that kids are fed. It's very, very important to us that we're able to contribute to that. And I know Mr. Ferreira will have an announcement around that as well, and because we've had a lot of comments from people as to how they can contribute to that. And so I'll leave it to Dr. Arakelian or Mr. Ferreira to fill you in on that. So I'm going to be quiet now and turn it over to Dr. Hobbs, and then to Dr. Arakelian and to Mr. Ferreira, and then we'll come back and take your questions. Okay, thanks. Dr. Hobbs.
Right. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. My updates are, I'm just going to kind of take a calendar view, and I'll provide as much kind of logistical information as I can. Now, where our focus is in terms with regard to curriculum is we're looking at end of the year, we're looking at summer, and we're looking at programs for, so end of the year. We are currently in conversations with SNU and Great Bay Community College around their dual enrollment connection with us. And we're making sure that students get the credit they need. Those students that are enrolled in our running start and dual enrollment classes that Winnacunnet. Likewise, I'm having conversations with the shop, the college counselor around the AP exams, what the logistics are, what we need to provide for our families and for our students successful there. So that's this year. And another big focus is going to be just as we reemerge from this, we're going to need to creative ways to address gaps in curriculum, gaps in programming, and gaps in content knowledge. So that's where we're kind of unpacking ideas for summer and for fall right now. Whether that means augmenting the fall curriculum, what it looks like when we get back to school, whether it means we start thinking about diagnostics or testing in a different way when we come back in the fall. I am looking at, we're also looking at bridge programs to aid in that transition from 8th to 9th grade, something that's going to be coming up with curriculum coordinators in the near future. I had a really fascinating conversation actually with Donna Couture and Bill McGowan around utilizing the ELO model in order to address creatively some of the gaps in programming that we're going to see as a result of this. And I look forward to kind of pursuing that, really putting a lot of ideas on the table, not only with respect to what we're offering our students, but also with respect to the referral process. Obviously, different things are going to work for different kids as we come back and as we address all these gaps in programming. We want to make sure that that referral process is something that makes sense. I'm sorry, I just got a comment that my audio is horrible. I apologize for that. I don't know if there's anything I can do. I'll mute. I don't know if that helps. Is it worth
Sounded a little
continuing?
better, yes.
Okay. So apologies, right? So that likewise, we're looking at summer school in terms of creativity of programming. There is a larger issue, statewide issue on the SAS test, the statewide assessment system, and to what extent that's going to be required or used. That I do not have any current answers on that, but right now it sounds like from the commissioner that they're looking at like a fall timeline on that. I think the NHSAA is pushing back against that because we're going to have enough going on in the fall, frankly, just addressing our own program, rather than trying to institute a full-on test. So that is the conversation, and we don't have an answer, but it's something that's ongoing. And then, like Dr. Lupini said, we're kind of looking at the new normal for the fall. What does this mean for our established professional development calendar? What does this mean for new teacher orientation? And also, providing credence to the initiatives that we currently have, the math program review, the performance assessments that we've been working on all year. We want to make sure that those initiatives are maintained throughout this process, but we got to strike the right balance. And other than that, we're looking at the fall, and I think setting expectations in terms of what it looks like to go back to school. And I'm sure you see there are myriad articles out about what that actually might look like, the small class sizes, the augmented schedules, the use of PPE, and ultimately our guiding questions are how can we keep students and teachers safe in that environment, and set up plans that make sense for all of us. So that's where our conversations are around curriculum. Happy to field any questions as they arise. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Yep.
Dr. Arakelian.
Thank you. I'm going to give you some updates from student services. But first, as we are addressing parents here today, I just want to highlight a couple of the resources we have that are particularly on point for parents that I've been noticing and really impressed with. And I've highlighted these two resources on our document that's linked on SAU21.org. If you go to the COVID-19 page, one of the top links are for parents: care, comfort, and supports. So there are two highlighted resources. The first is the Lynn Lyons 30 Minutes Weekly Podcast. So she is talking to parents every week, and she's also a parent who's home, and she's an expert in anxiety and how to face those fears, how to help your children face those fears, how to navigate all of these feelings while we're all socially distancing. The other resource is the Bureau of Student Support. So they have a YouTube channel, and they already have dozens of they're not really trainings, they're webinars for parents, for educators, really for anyone. And I mean everything from screen time, internet safety, creativity during a crisis, what to do at home, and 5 actions to keep your kids safe. So those two are highlighted on our website. I haven't updated you in a while about our meals program. So we continue to offer that Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Pick up 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. at Seabrook and Winnicott. We have 3 delivery routes that also go out during those times, and that bus route is posted on the SAU21 website. The delivery routes did change a couple weeks ago, so if you haven't been on there in a little while, please go on there and find the bus stop that is closest to you. You can wait at that bus stop a few minutes before the time that's posted. Please stand next to your car if you're driving to that stop, because otherwise the bus may not realize that you in your car are waiting for the stop and to receive meals. And then once the bus stops, it's important that we stand in a socially distanced manner, and are patient. There's lots of food on the buses, and there's plenty for everyone. There's no sign up required to receive meals. You do not need to call and sign up to receive meals at delivery or pickup. And you also don't need to qualify under any state assistance or free and reduced lunch. No one needs to qualify. We want as high participation in these programs as possible. I know that a lot of families are benefiting from this out of convenience for, being at home and having to prepare 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. So this is a real relief on a lot of families, and it's really anyone. You can do it anytime, once a week, 3 times a week, anytime that works for you. Also, we have a no-cost Wi-Fi list on our website. So many carriers are providing free hotspots right now. So you can just go onto a device and search for a Wi-Fi connection in your area. And if it says Xfinity or several other companies, they're free right now to communities. And the instructions and the options are posted on that document. That link is on our COVID-19 page on SAU21.org. If you cannot locate anything, access Wi-Fi by clicking any of those links on that through your phone, through your data plan. You can call 603-926-8992 extension 101, and someone will call you and walk you through it. Otherwise, we also have hotspot devices. So we have some of those left. You should give us a call, leave a voicemail so we know to expect you, because we can have that available either during our food pickup or during a delivery. So we want to make sure that everybody has access to Wi-Fi as we're in this extended remote learning situation. In special education, if you have a child who receives specialized instruction and services, if you have not already had an IEP meeting and you're supposed to have one by the end of the year, we will reach out to you. You are welcome to reach out to your case manager or your director to find out when you might have that meeting, but we're holding all of our meetings. We're holding our meetings via Google Meets, or it can be a conference call, because it's important that we at least touch base with you, communicate with you by phone, Google Meet, by email, hopefully share some documents with you via email with your permission. So those are happening. Even our transition meetings. So for students who are moving from 8th grade to 9th grade, we are holding transition meetings. All the kids, all the 8th graders who have IEPs, it's important for us to review what Winnacunnet looks like for next year, what to expect in special services. So those are held. If you've missed one of those meetings, or you're not sure when your meeting is going to be held, please reach out to your director of special education. You can reach out to me. My email is on the SAU21 website, or the director in your school, and we will connect you with your case manager. Those transition meetings are 2 combined teams. So it's the sending districts. So if you are, for example, if you are from Northampton, you will have the people who typically go to your special education meetings. That's your team. And then also there will be the Winnacunnet director, Raymond Pillsbury, and your new case manager will be on that call from Winnacunnet, and your guidance counselor. So at those meetings, they review what classes you might have next year, what your 8th grade team is recommending for you, and then what that looks like at Winnacunnet. So it's really important to connect with your next special education team as you switch districts, because we want to make sure that students are laying eyes on these people, even if it's virtually. So students know, okay, this is my new person. This is my person for next year. They're always very valuable, and sometimes students are attending an IEP meeting for the first time in 8th grade, and they can be a little nervous about it, but in the end, it's very helpful for them in my experience. Yes, as Dr. Lupini mentioned, we're planning for for ESY. So ESY is extended school year, our summer programming for students who require a summer program to mitigate regression over those months, and other students who might benefit from that at this time. We're having those conversations, but right now we are planning for remote learning. And in student services, we're going to be preparing a way to reach out to you to find out if that's something that you will be able to access this summer. We're going to ask if your student will be able to access related services remotely and specialized instruction remotely this summer. We're waiting for an announcement from the governor and the commissioner to confirm with us what we'll have access to, what we're allowed to do on May 15th. But we're anticipating that it's going to be largely remote instruction. And finally, I want to highlight a new service that we just launched this week, and that's our digital tip line. So the tip line links are on every one of our websites now, all of our districts and the SAU 21 website. So the digital tip line is for anyone in our communities, staff, parents, even students can go onto this tip line to report unsafe behavior. We've received a dramatic decrease. There's been a dramatic decrease in tips in what's happening for kids, and we know that safety is still something that could be a concern. So you can go onto that digital tip line at any time, and you can leave your contact information, but it can be completely anonymous. That is optional to leave your information. But these tips can be pertaining to violence, threats to others, suicide threats, drugs and alcohol, sexual harassment, or other unsafe behavior. You can leave a tip, just a few lines about something that you've heard or seen, and because you are concerned about a student who's exhibiting unsafe behavior. And you can, there's an option to upload an image. So if there's something that you are seeing on social media, for example, or online, that is concerning, you can take a screenshot and upload that to us. And those tips go straight to building administrators. They go to the SAU and they go to building administrators, and they would, we will handle those tips like we would handle them if we were in the building. So because we're not in buildings, we're not hearing as many tips about kids to keep them safe. So that's why we expedited this service. And we encourage you to report those things. It doesn't mean that every single tip, someone will get in trouble, but it is another pathway for us to receive information. So we really encourage you to use that. And I think that covers my updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Arakelian. Mr. Ferreira.
Good morning. So I have 3 young children, and I know I struggle with explaining what's going on during this crisis. So I would like to recommend, CNN did host a town hall this morning with Sesame Street characters, and it's a good kind of non-scary way to kind of educate your children, if you do have young children, what is going on. So that's my recommendation for the day. But from and that should be on demand. So from a financial perspective, the state of New Hampshire has indicated to us, the school districts, that they do expect to provide us some guidance on what the amounts of CARE Act stimulus funds we should be receiving, or eligible for rather, and then what type of expenditures or any type of investments, future investments, will qualify for the usage of these funds. So hopefully we'll get some locked in information within the next week or two, so we can provide you, the community, a better outlook on some of those funding sources. Now, Dr. Lupini alluded to this, earlier this morning, but many people in our communities, as well as across the state and the nation, are concerned about potential tax revenue declines, as a result of this crisis and the economic impact. And we absolutely share this concern in how this affects town tax collections and we obviously the school district budgets are funded via tax revenue. So we as a school district are taking all necessary measures in order to mitigate any potential negative effect on our 5 communities, our school operations, as well as ultimately our taxpayers. So we have briefed our school boards on these potential financial ramifications, and we are currently, as Dr. Lupini mentioned, we've scheduled meetings with town officials from each of our 5 communities: Hampton, Southampton, Hampton Falls, Seabrook, and Northampton. We will be dialoguing with these town administrators, as well as some of our budget committee chairs and select board members. And this is in order to talk about the challenges ahead for our communities. Specifically, we want to have a better understanding of the town's perspective, where they see potential revenue declines, and any potential issues with those revenue collections and budgets going forward. I really want to take particular note that this is a situation where our schools are faced with some significant challenges. We're providing high quality or significant challenges to provide high quality continuous instruction with the same high quality content that our students are accustomed to, while doing so in a remote environment. This is a big paradigm shift, and it's a challenge to our teachers, our administrators, and to our students and families. But on top of that, it does require financial investment. There are costs associated with technology, such as our internet hotspots, our subscriptions, hardware, software. Additionally, there are necessary costs in order to sanitize and disinfect our schools. We're providing personal protective equipment, PPE, for our staff who are still working in our schools on a modified schedule, delivering meals. These are specific to remote learning, but then we have our fixed costs where we really have no that they've already been recognized, and there's no option for us to we can't just ramp those down. When we look at school funding and expenditures, a good portion of the budget are fixed, and they've already been recognized. So that represents the majority of expenditures for each of our individual school districts, and this includes our fixed building costs, our personnel, as well as their associated salaries and benefits, our special education services. That all being said, I think I can speak for all of us. We're very proud that we've been able to continue to operate a fully functional, efficient, high-functioning school district, or SAU, in all 5 communities. So that being said, as we work with our school boards and our town officials, there are absolutely certain savings that we expect to recognize. We do have some variable and discretionary accounts where we can look to reduce, and that we are already reducing. So this includes our transportation, and that's both our regular contracts for transportation, but also for athletics, field trips, special education, our homeless and foster care transportation. Additionally, we have accounts that we should see reductions in with electricity, heating fuels, many of our supplies accounts, our copier costs are decreasing, postage, water, our repair and maintenance accounts, travel reimbursement, our extracurricular stipends, professional development, training, rentals, officials, and graduation costs. I mean, I'm sure I missed some other accounts as well, but we do have, you know, some levers to pull, and some discretionary accounts that we can, or variable accounts that we can reduce, and we have. So we have effectively minimized our operating budget spending to really focus on our remote learning specific spending and those additional costs that we've experienced, as well as any of our essential expenditures in order for us to operate effectively. Additionally, you know, the SAU administration has come to determine that we do not plan to bring forth any year-end projects. You know, if we do have any unexpended funds at the end of the year. So, you know, at the end of the year, when we have an operating budget, you know, if we did recognize any savings in previous years, we might look at utilizing those funds for a specific purpose. Well, we feel that this year, due to this specific situation, that would not be appropriate. We will not be bringing any of those projects to the board, and we do intend to return those funds to the town to offset assessment. So looking forward, you know, we're working with our town officials, but we're also working very closely internally with our individual buildings and our principals and our other leaders to look at our budgets going forward into 2020, 2021. So we're currently reviewing our assumptions that we made last year for our next year's budget. Things change over the course of 12 to 18 months from when we start the budget process to the actual budget year. So that could include student enrollment. It could include, you know, there could be other variable needs that change. But we're going to look at every single. So right now we're going through the hiring process to replace any staff members who we may have lost due to turnover. So we're taking this opportunity to look at all of our personnel needs. You know, perhaps enrollments have changed and we don't need to replace a position. In any event, we're conducting that analysis, that looking at our assumptions and seeing where we could potentially, you know, save costs going into next year. So we'll be looking at that from a personnel perspective, as well as you know, all of our accounts across the board. You know, this is an exercise that we conduct, you know, less formally, but it is an exercise we conduct every year. However, we're going to take a real hardline approach this year to make certain that any potential savings that we could recognize, that we do, because we do know that there are costs that will be coming as to when we look at reopening. So while we continue this effort to minimize expenditures, you know, we do continue to monitor any potential funding opportunities, and we could see that from the federal government. You know, we have the aforementioned CARES Act. We may see some state funding or FEMA reimbursement. So we're closely monitoring those funding opportunities, you know, and any other supplemental funding sources. And this is important. Like I said, there will be additional costs when we look at opening the buildings and starting school in our physical school buildings. So that being said, I just want to make it very clear that we're working very closely and we're committed to working with our town officials to really assist in a cooperative manner, you know, as we navigate through this unprecedented pandemic. So now I just want to switch gears slightly to another very important topic. So Caroline spoke about food service, and we all understand food security is really an essential component of the student learning process. So as we continue to provide these nutritious meals for all our students free of charge, there's obviously a cost component to that. So we for this current school year, we're able to we have budgeted funds through the end of the year for our normal food service program. We have received waivers from USDA to conduct these deliveries and have pickup locations that qualify for reimbursement from USDA. So we are in a fairly decent spot for this current school year for expenditures. That being said, it's not going to cover all of our transportation costs to deliver the foods, but we're really looking at as we look at planning for the end of this year, then into the summer and the start of school year in the fall, we really have taken a look at the summer and what a critical period of time this is, where students are at risk of going hungry or suffering from food insecurity. So as such, we are exploring the option of continuing this meals program through the summer. School ends on June 4th. So there's a significant time period between June 4th and the end of August when students return. We understand that many families, they currently are struggling or will be struggling as this economic crisis continues. So we really feel it's incredibly important to continue our summer school programming, and we are proposing continuation of this food service program to our joint board this coming Tuesday. They're aware that we are bringing forth this proposal, and we are confident that they will fully support this very important program. So as we've discussed this program, we've had many people, many community members reaching out to the SAU, asking how they can help, because they know this is, we're offering free meals, where this is outside the scope of our existing budget. Can they donate funds? Can they donate food supplies or labor? So like I said, we do anticipate some USDA reimbursement, but it won't cover all these expenditures. So in response to this community's outreach, we have set up a fundraising campaign to accommodate these requests and to help with this summer program that we propose to continue serving meals through to provide no gap in service for our students. And while we have summer programming, whether that's remotely or in person. So we set up a GoFundMe account campaign less than 48 hours ago. So boy, I really want to take this moment to thank you, our community, because it's what a response. So like I said, this campaign's been live for less than 48 hours, and we've already raised over $4,000. That's just amazing. As I look through the names of people that have donated, it's incredible. I recognize so many teachers and SAU 21 employees who have donated, and it's genuinely heartwarming to see how this community has reacted, and showing some real genuine care for people that may be struggling. So thank you. We really appreciate the support. And if anyone else is interested in donating, we have posted the link on the SAU 21 website, as well as our school websites, and we've been posting it on Twitter and Facebook, other social media. And like Caroline said, I do want to encourage you, if and you don't need to be struggling financially. I mean, boy, I know how difficult it is to prepare and cook meals during this time period. So if you're just struggling to or just feel like you need a day off, please come pick up meals. It's for all of our students. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Matt. So let me just say, because I know not everyone was with us at the beginning, next week we'll be joined by all of our K-8, and in the case of Seabrook, our elementary and middle level principals, who will join us to talk about their schools and 8th grade and summer programming, and end of the year kinds of things mainly. The following week, so I think that's May 2nd for them. May 9th, we'll be joined again by Mr. McGowan to talk about the high school, and I made some comments earlier about that. We have some questions, and if you have a question, please feel free to put it into the Q&A session, and what I'll do now is go through those and ask my colleagues where appropriate to respond. So Dr. Arakelian, I know this first one's for you. You mentioned 8th graders transitioning, and this question, 8th graders transitioning with IEPs. This is a question regarding an 8th grader who has a 504 plan.
Yes, so the Winnicott, I just reached out to them. The Winnicott school counselors are currently in full gear working on that. So they're going to have that. We'll have a definitive answer as far as those reaching out meetings for kids who have 504s and transitioning up to the high school. We'll have that information for our call next week. And next week we'll have, I'm not sure if this was announced yet, but we'll have principals. Is that right, Dr. Lupini?
Yes, next week.
We'll have principals from K-8 schools on the call. So we're going to have a lot more information for 8th grade families, including 504 transition process.
Great, thank you. Matt, here's a thank you for the Sesame Street call out. I was intrigued by that. I'm gonna go watch it myself. This next comment is, please feel free to share. So I'll just read it. Thank you for sharing. Please feel free to share that Unitil has made available monies for customers who are finding it difficult to stay up to date on their utility bill. Help is being given through community action offices. The phone number is 603-474-3507. There's another note here. Fuel application deadlines have been extended through May. Food pantry available, as well as tables set up in the parking lot for a grab and go opportunity. So thank you for that. So there are, we know that there are other opportunities for people to access supports for sort of non-school things, as well as other meal opportunities. So thank you for that. The next question, is there somebody want to jump in there? Okay, next question, yeah. So I wonder if there's a way to leverage the SAU's summer food with USDA's summer feeding program to help offset costs and leverage resources? And the answer is, we hope so. So Matt, Caroline, am I correct that we're still waiting for guidance on USDA's summer program and how it might be adapted to allow for a continuation of what we're doing now? Am I correct on that?
Yeah, so we have been approved for the Seamless Summer Program for both locations, Seabrook and Winnicott. So we do qualify for reimbursements. That being said, there is one outstanding issue with the program, in that current or traditionally the summer or all programs is it's a congregate meals. So we have to, in order to receive reimbursement, we have to provide seating for the students to eat their meals in a physical space. Now, for this period through the end of the school year, the USDA provided a waiver, so we didn't have to have students in a building, not socially distancing, to have their meals, and they allowed us to just do bag lunches, bag breakfasts, to pick up the meals or to deliver them. They have not yet issued that waiver for the summer. However, we are optimistic and confident that they will issue that waiver. So we do anticipate seeing some reimbursements over the summer for that program once we receive that waiver. And then additionally, we have this, this fundraising campaign that's already raised, a significant amount of money. Obviously our transportation costs are not covered under reimbursement. The reimbursement does not cover all of the labor, supplies, transportation, and food that consists of the summer program. But yes, we were absolutely looking for USDA reimbursement for a portion of those funds.
Hey, Matt, only because I saw the question down here later, someone asked, where is the link to the GoFundMe on our website?
So on the SAU 21 website, it's on the homepage. It's right underneath this Zoom, this community forum link for Zoom. So if you just scroll down very slightly, it's right on the homepage. So.
Thank you. The next question is, my children do not really thrive with online learning. They are losing their motivation to keep up with online education. What do you suggest for students regarding this issue? I have somewhat of a comment here, but anybody else? David, Caroline, want to?
Yeah, I mean, I can address this. This is one of those things where we just kind of have to acknowledge the truth. Online learning doesn't look the same as face-to-face learning, and a lot of, it's difficult to maintain that motivation and that kind of zest for learning when it's happening remotely. I think the advice I would give is it's about balance. Look for opportunities to get away from the computer. Look for opportunities to take a walk or have journals, or work with your teacher, to come up with some assignments that are not computer based. And I'll just say from a program standpoint, the reality is the reality, but we are looking at, in the summer and in the coming fall, what can we do to kind of move things, be creative in our programming, because we know that if it's not working for students this spring, to create a summer program that's remote might not be the most sensible thing, right? So we're trying to get creative around that.
Thanks. Caroline, anything on this?
Well, I would add to that, absolutely. There's so much on parents right now as far as trying to keep it interesting and variety, because there's only so much we can reach out and do through our screens from, your educators, through the screens and through phone calls and everything. But one webinar that I think might be helpful is Creativity in a Crisis, under the Bureau of Student Wellness. That's about harnessing the power of art. So and that's their newest one that was just either Thursday or Friday when they aired that webinar. I haven't even had the chance to watch it yet. But harnessing the power of art, I think that parents are really getting creative, infusing different ways to get their kids interested in following through with lessons. And if it takes walking outside, if it takes art during a lesson, I think that, we have to use all the resources that we have right now. But also, I would encourage you to just start looking for all the, find your favorite resource. We're bombarded with resources right now, but, I've definitely been bombarded with resources, but I think, once you kind of settle in and find a couple of your favorites, it can really be a time where you can be pouring in these resources. There's so much that we're giving. You also have to balance that with how are you filling your own self up so that you have more to give for your kids, for your for yourself and keeping your own social, emotional, and mental health in mind.
Yeah, thank you for that. The thing I guess I would add is that, just a reminder that we have guidance counselors, we have social workers in many of the districts. They have office hours. They're great people to talk through the sort of the specifics of this question with. They can be very helpful in helping to plan what that needs to look like for your child. Here's a question about in regard to lamppost banners, which is one part of what we've talked about at the high school. Can they be installed throughout the town instead of just at school? No one will see them unless they drive through the school. So this is part of what Mr. McGowan and his team have been talking about in terms of coming up with some ways, yard signs, lamppost banners, et cetera, to honor our graduates. I saw a question down here sooner, it may be the same person. Will students have them? Will they be given to students? Because we're talking about yard signs that have both a general sort of class of 2020 and then some yard signs that actually have students' names on them. And we do have some plans in terms of getting those out to those students down the road. But I'll take these suggestions. They're good ones. Back to Mr. McGowan. I know one other thing the high school's talking about is doing something around cap and gown pickup where these banners and signs would be important to have at the school. So maybe we can accomplish both. Thank you for the suggestion, and I'll take it back. Oh boy, yeah. So here's one of these criteria for reopening, right? If PPE is required for a fall school return, will planning for the safe return for all include planning for those students with sensory aversions who may not be physically able to wear a mask? Yes, it will have to, and that's how complicated these things are, right? They're very, very complicated. I was about to say it's easy to have a conversation about social distancing and masks and those kinds of things. It's not easy, but what has to be embedded within that conversation is that all of those things can't apply to every student, and we're going to have to think about the individual needs in this question, aversions for certain kids to that environment in terms of coming back, and that's why we're starting now during the coming weeks to be talking about a plan for what the criteria for opening schools looks like. So thank you for that comment. It's very, very helpful.
I can add one thing, if I could just add one thing there.
Yeah, please.
I've heard some families, particularly with children with sensory issues, or really all young kids, are not used to, or any kids, but might have an aversion to wearing a mask. I've heard some families are having their kids like kind of practice at home, kind of spend a little time getting used to it. Kind of like, if your student is about to start a sport where they never had to wear a helmet, wear that helmet around the house, because the coaches recommend that they wear it for a while and get used to it, because all of that sensory input is different. So it's another protective piece of equipment, I guess, and practicing. So rather than, okay, first day to school, you need to wear a mask, hopefully there's time at home when they can practice doing that.
Yep, thank you. This yard sign is much like the lamppost signs question, and so the answer is yes. I'll take that to Mr. McGowan. We'll sort of embed that in our conversations. So thank you. This is about putting the banners up, the signs up around town. In regard to graduation, I've talked to a few seniors. They've said a ceremony without a parent is upsetting and pointless. A suggestion was letting the person, so let me stop here on this question and say, so this is the danger, right, of getting too deep into the rabbit hole. So right now, the guidelines that we're working with wouldn't allow for an in-person ceremony, okay? Our seniors have said to us, the senior officers have said in a meeting I was in, and I know they've said constantly to Mr. McGowan, they would very much like a face-to-face ceremony. They also would like to have it before July 1st because they realize that a number of their classmates won't be available due to commitments that they have, military and otherwise, after July 1st. All we've been noodling around with them is ideas as to how that might take place. Again, given their priority, that they would like to have a face-to-face ceremony. It could very well be that the only way to have a face-to-face ceremony is very much like what the Air Force did. It could very well be that under the guidelines we'll be working with, there won't be the possibility of a face-to-face ceremony until July or August or later. All we're trying to do right now is try to figure out if, like the Air Force Academy did, is there a way to respect the wishes that we've heard communicated from those officers, and that I think Mr. McGowan would say he's hearing from seniors. Right now, I don't have a way to do a face-to-face ceremony at all, given the current guidelines. And until I see this end-of-year planning guide, and this is the danger of doing this, right? We wanted to sort of get out our thinking and what we were hearing from students, but the danger in doing that is you put an idea like that out and people say, well, I don't love that idea. Well, that's great, but we can't even do that idea right now, right? So we're again still in this brainstorming and trying to honor what we think we're hearing from our students. Here's a sentence I'm not sure I ever thought I would hear. Elmo and Dr. Sanjay Gupta were really awesome. I'm not sure Sanjay Gupta and Elmo have ever been in the same sentence before, but that's great. Down here further, somebody asks if we could post that. Dr. Arakelian, maybe we want to build that into our comfort and care document.
Sure.
It sounds like it's good. Oh, here's yeah, I should have done this. I'm sorry. Thank you, Laura. We have a number of schools that have done sort of shout out videos for students, you know, and by the way, Hampton Falls has also done a parade. Northampton has one planned, but a couple of our schools have done "We Miss You," "We're Thinking About You" kind of videos. Seabrook Elementary, Seabrook Middle, the high school that I've seen. Oh, and Northampton, and they are terrific. If you get a chance to see them, even if it's not your school, I promise it'll make you feel good. Go watch them. So thank you, Laura, for that that comment. I have read and heard different information about the SAT. What is the real status of the test? Oh boy. So summer sessions have been canceled, and our understanding is that the SAT is developing an at-home version of the test that I believe, when I saw it last week, David, you may have an update on this. I believe I saw that was going to be available in September. I don't think I saw that it was going to be available before.
I read late September for that.
Late September, right. So they've canceled pretty much their administration sessions. This kind of goes into what David said earlier about statewide assessments. So there's the SAT, and students sign up and they go out and take it somewhere. And then there's the SAT that we administer as the statewide assessment program at the high school level. And the commissioner would like to have that test in place for all, well, would be then seniors, they're juniors now, in the fall. And we're still talking with him about that. Districts are still talking with him about that. So I believe they've been canceled. The June dates have been canceled. I believe they're talking, as David just jumped in and said, they're talking about this online version of the SAT come late September. And we're still up in the air about whether we will administer the SAT in school for all what would be then seniors in September. David, did I capture all of that, or are there other things that I missed?
Yep, that's the basic picture right now. The only other thing that I would add is there is conversation around the voucher idea, providing a voucher that allows them basically to take the SAT on their own calendar, as opposed to something that we would provide through the school.
So let me just jump in on what David said there, and I've said this on this platform before. We're very much opposed to the idea of taking a school day in the fall to administer the SAT. We're going to need, under a very simple premise, we believe we need all the school time we can get. And we think that what the commissioner should do is take those funds which would have been spent at the state level and give each student a voucher. NHSAA, that's the Superintendent's Association, that's our position. And so that's still up in the air, right? So much more to come on the SAT. The other thing I want to throw in, because I've said this on here before, the number of colleges that are eliminating, at least temporarily, the requirement for the SAT is growing exponentially almost by the week. And so one thing I would do if I were a parent in this environment, and goodness knows I went through this with my 3 children, but I would be looking as to whether they've modified the requirements at the school at the school or schools of your children's choice, because it could very well be that the SAT is no longer going to be a requirement for them. Put the links for all the videos that teachers contributed on the SAU page. I think we can do that. I think we've tweeted them all out, but I think we can do that. I know they're up on their individual pages. I believe they are. But we can put them up on the SAU page as well. It's a great suggestion. There have been a lot of car parades on social media, maybe something to think about with seniors, how to incorporate a celebration. Yeah, that idea has been tossed around. That idea has been explored. As I said, no ideas too crazy. That's our sort of new mantra. I think we're gonna put that up on the website. No ideas too crazy for this or anything else, but the idea of car parades, we've talked about that concept with Mr. McGowan as to a sort of a reverse parade for how kids would pick up their caps and gowns, those kinds of things. So great suggestion, thank you. So I'll wait a couple minutes and see if there's any, oh, will the seniors be able to have the signs and banners when they're taken down? That's a plan we discussed last week. That is a plan we discussed last week. So preliminarily, one of the ideas was that we'd have some signs made that just say class of 2020. We'd have other signs made that had students' names on them. I don't know if that's still where we are. That's what we were talking about earlier in the week. And that then we would give them to the students, one of each, the one with their name and a class of 2020. That was the general idea. To that idea. I think that's probably where we still are, but there's a lot of things being discussed at the high school as ways to make sure that we honor these students. And you probably get asked about the prom, but any ideas? So Mr. McGowan, I'll go with what Mr. McGowan said here. He said the conversation, there were 2 conversations going on. He'll be back in 2 weeks to get more specific on this, I'm sure. One conversation was about moving the prom to sometime in the fall. And the other was one that I believe some students brought to him about the idea of a junior-senior prom next year. Held in the end of the year kind of framework, but a junior-senior prom. And when he was with us a couple of weeks ago, both of those were still on the table. And yes, thank you for this comment. I did hear that in the meeting, that the Chem-Free organization, that committee, is making yard signs for seniors. Thank you for doing that. We so appreciate it, and I know they so appreciate you all doing that. Anything else for today? Oh my gosh, there it is. Oh, thank you, the SAU administrative staff. Thank you for that comment, Erica. We really appreciate it. Gabrielle, thank you so much. It's our pleasure to do this. I said to this group this week, I can't believe we're doing the 5th of these now. But we've made a commitment to continue to do these as long as we're involved in this current situation, or B, until you stop coming. As long as you're showing up, we're happy to come on and talk with you and answer your questions. I hope you're all safe. I hope you're all finding time to do things that don't involve a screen. Thank you, Debbie, for that comment. And I hope you're taking care of yourself. And if there's anything we can do, as Caroline said, our emails are up on the website. Please send us an email and we will get it to the right people. If we're not the right people to answer your questions, we'll make sure to get it to the right people. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.